what I do you how do I say this?
That was
She
a good way
said,
to say it.
"Do you want to go see your grandpa?" Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm Blair.
And I'm Kirsten, and we are
Mediocre
content. And we've got we just finished recording the last ad of this quarter, and it is phenomenal.
You guys are gonna flip. It's so good.
You'll hear it in this episode, so feel free. Well,
Stay
actually,
tuned.
yeah, they'll hear it in this episode, I think.
They will.
Yeah, that would be great. Give us your feedback.
It's gonna be good. Not to hype it up too much because it is just an ad, but it's gonna be good.
And we say ad loosely because we make the ads and
Right. Yeah. So we don't get paid for any of this, but it's
no.
fun.
We pay ourselves in time spent together. Aww.
That's right.
Gross.
Super gross.
Oh, so how are you this week? What's going on your side of town?
Well, I am an iPad girly now. Just
oh my
so you
God.
guys know, the aesthetic is real.
She got an iPad.
She got an iPad. She got life together. She got an iPad.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So that's happened. It's a work in progress. I'll let you guys updated on how it's going, and by that I mean I won't keep you updated at all. Like it's just
we'll completely forget about it and move on.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fair.
But that's what's new over here. Also, Chris is not feeling super well. He's a little bit under the weather. But
Tyler and I got a stomach bug last night. Like my stomach is still not that great. And I don't know if it's just going around or what we ate, but it wasn't like unusual things for us to eat.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just been like weird.
Yeah. So I had a stomach bug like a month ago. I had a head cold, and then now Chris has the head cold. So I think it's just us like reintegrating into society. And
gross.
Now we're just all getting sick because it's going around work too. It's like not uncommon. I don't know.
Well, and Tyler also it's his like first week of push too. So like he is around a bunch of new people also. So maybe he brought something home or something.
I think our immune systems are still recovering.
Absolutely. They are not prepared. So I wanted to interject really quickly. I know that before we do our good news and stuff, we typically have a disclaimer, but I have kind of a not disclaimer for this episode, honestly. I would like to
in an interesting twist.
So, as you know from the title, we will be going to the moon today. But I would also like to say, in most cases, most of the sources that we get for a lot of our content are, they're good. I mean, we wouldn't pick them if they weren't, but this one is straight from NASA itself. So I would like to say that we are pretty positive about the information that we have today. Like, obviously, still go do your own research and do not just quote us for advice or anything, but I'm feeling pretty confident about our information accuracy.
She said, "Don't question me. It's from NASA."
It's from NASA. Just want to throw that into the mix.
Love that for you.
I
love
mean,
that so much.
I figured, why not? Also, this is part one of what I'm going to call the solar series because I dreamt that this is what we were going to be doing today. And so I'm going to make it real.
It came to her in a prophecy. So we're doing solar systems now.
Yeah, it's that twilight dreaming when you're like supposed to be up, but your brain is still like, hey, do you want to talk about something? And you're like, no, not really.
No.
It's like 6 a.m. on a Sunday. Anyway.
Well, this should be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So strap on your boots, yo.
Moon boots.
But before we go to the moon, feel free to give us some good news as we depart.
Yes. Okay, so I like to call this 50% science corner and 50% regular good news. Okay, because I tried really hard to not get science related good news.
Meanwhile, the entire episode is also science related.
So no, this is the problem is like most good news is like science related. I scoured the internet and like
it's true.
There's a few like really nice heartfelt stories that are like,
Mm-hmm.
so and so found their wedding ring, or so and so's dog like returned to them after 3 months abroad in Europe or something like that. I don't know. And but like a lot of it is science related because that's
Yeah.
like the only good thing happening right now. I mean, there's a lot of problems with the environment, obviously, but
Facts.
like there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of really good discoveries that give us a lot of hope too. So I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, anyway.
And that's why it's good
So
news, you know?
anyway, without further ado, I have a story about cool plants.
I'm so
And
ready.
so as if you have plants, you already know that plants can improve the air quality in your room
Hmm.
because they take in CO2 and produce oxygen, which is what we breathe, right? Okay. Everybody on the same page.
Woo.
So now scientists have found, and this is not a conclusive study,
Mm.
but scientists have found that plants could possibly be also sanitizing the air in
Ooh.
your room as well.
Okay. Like a purifier, like an air purifier.
Correct.
Nice.
Similar to that. So, when absorbing sunlight, plants produce a biochemical that is a common sight among home first aid kits, which is hydrogen peroxide. Okay.
Okay.
So, and hydrogen peroxide is used for disinfecting wounds and just like a general
Mhm.
disinfectant. It's very nice. It's a natural chemical. We love it. It is found to spontaneously be present in microscopic water droplets floating through the air in rooms with houseplants. So we're
Ooh.
thinking that like hydrogen peroxide was found concentrated in water vapor emerging out of the leaves of houseplants. So basically, plants are sweating hydrogen peroxide.
I mean, ew, because you're sweaty, but also thank you, I guess.
Right. Yeah. So like the idea is that if these water vapor droplets collide with like a water droplet with the flu, which is spread
Mhm.
through droplet
Mhm.
what is the word I'm looking for?
Come on, nurse.
I, through droplets in the air, we'll just say that.
Right, right,
Could and so then that could sanitize that
right.
flu virus and then poof, the flu is gone. Right.
Wow.
So now again, this is not there needs to be more research done
Mhm.
on this, but this is just like what they have potentially found.
Right.
The two plants that give off the most hydrogen peroxide, so if you're trying to be real sanitized in your house, the African violets, which are
Okay.
very pretty too, by the way,
Mm,
and the devil's ivy.
nice.
Also, and I did not research and see if they're safe for animals or anything like that, so just figure that out on your own. But and but yeah, so those are the two. And then in this study, we report the first findings of hydrogen peroxide production via transpired water vapor and show that surprisingly, all transpiring plants are likely contributing to local and thus global atmospheric hydrogen peroxide concentrations.
Hmm.
Hydrogen
Interesting.
production by plants may have implications in indoor air quality, such as hospitals, high density regions such as megacities, and rural regions impacted by forest fires. Our work further implicates plants such as a implicates plants as a viable nature-based solution for air quality improvement and to defend against pathogenic outbreaks of infectious disease. So, in theory,
Mhm.
if we just, increase the amount of plants, we can
Mhm.
decrease the amount of infectious diseases. In theory,
Right. No, that makes
again,
sense.
lots
Yeah.
of testing needs to be done, lots needs to be confirmed, but like
Mhm.
I like this idea. I think this is lovely.
And they have also, I've seen recent, I feel like we maybe talked about this in a good news. I can't remember, but where they have the buildings in major cities, what they're like what they put on the side is like some kind of porous something, and then they put like moss on the buildings
Mhm.
themselves because one, it cools things off. Two, they're thinking it will purify the air and make it easier to breathe and like cut
Yeah,
down pollution. And I'm wondering if that's related in their like scientific journey,
totally.
as they're discovering these different ways to reduce pollution and things like that. That would make more sense too.
I would
Yeah.
think. I mean,
That's
plants
cool.
are the MVPs, really. I mean,
Dang. I mean, they're overwhelmed right now. I mean, whether you believe in global warming or not, whatever, we it just is what it is. But there's a lot of pollution out there, and right now, I feel like part of the problem is we're overproducing that, and a lot of the energy that would be used in plants to kind of help reduce that is just being overwhelmed as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Well, and there's a reason they call the Amazon like the lungs
well,
of the
right,
earth, right? Because
exactly,
it's like a giant air purifier for the entire
right,
world.
exactly.
So, moving on to our next one. So in Mumbai, there is an overpass that is painted lots of pretty colors, and underneath of it, the Sector 15 Sanpanda overpass in Mumbai, a video went viral of kids playing with toys, and there's like a basketball court and a gym, like a jungle gym, and like all kinds of stuff underneath the underpass. And the overpass is 20,000 square feet, and under the tallest section, there are 3 courts for badminton, 1 for basketball, a cricket zone with a pitch of 22 yards enclosed by a net, and a sizable skating rink, running track, and yoga area.
Good grief.
Yes.
Wow.
And like I said, the whole complex is painted in really bright, like red, blue, yellow, green. And basically this is their solution to not having enough space. And so they turn this into like an area where people can like hang out and stuff.
That's amazing.
And because they don't have, I guess they just, in the city, there's not enough parks. And so, and they're just using this dead space as like an area for people to hang out. And they turned it into a really nice little park. And they're doing it to other complexes or other overpasses as well in the city.
Awesome. That's amazing.
I thought so.
That's a great use
Super
of
cool.
the space. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, we could do that here.
Yeah, we could
be cool.
Definitely do. Can you imagine all the skate parks that would come?
Oh my God, I know.
Throwing it back to the early 2000s.
That would be perfect.
That would be perfect.
So cool.
Well, that's so nice.
Yeah. Anyway,
I love it.
Just a little feel good, people using their brains to make things better type story.
Honestly, we love that.
I agree.
Please use your brains. You have beautiful
Please use
brains.
your brains to make things better.
Yes, exactly. We have big brains in today's episode. Do you like that? Is that segue? Is that good?
I would say I feel like you could do better.
Oh
I feel like there could be I'm sorry. I feel like you
crowd.
Speaking of brains, today we could use ours to talk about the moon.
I did not use my brain. I used NASA's brain. So I guess I can't even say that. Well, whatever. We're segueing into the first half. Here we go. Strap in. So I have a personal fascination with space and planetary alignments. I would say there's a lot of people out there that do, honestly. And I put in my own joke because I write these and I'm fine with it. So I don't know if Mercury is in the microwave, but we're not talking about Mercury. We're talking about the moon. So we'll deal with Mercury another day.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. I would also like to preface in this episode that much like all the scientific pieces that we talk about, and even Blair hinted at in her good news, history, archaeology, science, all of these discoveries are vastly undiscovered and also still in process of a lot of data checking. A lot of scientific theories are still on the table. So
well, and the thing, just like a little reminder, the thing about science is like people, I think, jump to conclude that like, oh, well, this changed. So obviously you guys are liars and blah, blah, blah. And that's not the case. It's just the fact that scientists are willing to acknowledge when they're wrong and they're willing to accept new information and change their opinion.
And that is because they are under the understanding that pretty much everything is a hypothesis. And that means that you are in testing. You are testing for accuracy, not accepting facts when data comes back all the time. You have to bring in the data, analyze it, and that may change your opinion. It may change your hypothesis. Who knows? But all of that is to say, all the information included in NASA's discoveries and in their future travels through space and through the moon, and as data comes back, just know that things are more than likely going to change. They change all the time. And so again, do your own research, dive deep into these topics if they interest you. We always include the URLs to where we find the information. And so whenever there is new discoveries, or if data changes and proves something else to be true, you're going to find it on those websites. So
Exactly.
I just wanted to say, keep that in mind. If you listen to this and you're like, actually, data today says, yes, absolutely, it probably does.
Well, yeah, exactly. And if you're listening to this like a year or 2 years from now, things change.
Yeah.
People change. Life changes. It's okay.
Life goes on.
Right.
So with all of that nitty gritty out of the way, let's start with basic moon facts.
Yay, moon facts.
Woo!
Moon.
Moon. Oh my gosh, that's a throwback too. Oh my gosh. If you know, you know.
Yeah. And rate us 5 stars if you got that reference.
And if you don't know, go look it up. It's adorable. Okay, so the moon is about 233,210 miles from Earth, which is equivalent to about 375,315 kilometers, for those that are in the metric system. The moon's radius is about 1,080 miles or 1,740 kilometers, which is about a third of the width of Earth. Also, a little fast math for you. If you want the diameter of that, just multiply the radius by 2. So use your high school diploma well.
Yay, geometry.
Yay. Also, in my reading through this, I also discovered that the moon is moving away. It said, I'm out.
It said, I don't like you guys.
Yeah, you don't seem like the vibe you were millennia ago. So apparently the moon is moving away from the Earth about 1 inch year over year. So enjoy that little existential crisis. We don't know what the implications of that are, so don't panic yet. But it just is what it is,
Yes.
There have been 24 human visitors to the moon, and it is the only place beyond Earth humans have set foot. So while we've pushed out a lot of technology and robotics, there's been over 100 robotic visits just on the moon itself. But we have deployed other things into space, but humans have only touched the moon. They haven't been to any other planetary system yet. Speaking of the robots, there are currently 3 robotic spacecraft exploring the moon. There is the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, and then there's the twin Artemis spacecraft. And the Artemis spacecrafts are not affiliated with the current Artemis program. We'll talk about that later. But basically, the Artemis program is us trying to send astronauts back to the moon after all the Apollo series have concluded in the early.
I'm so excited for that.
I know, it's so exciting. And there have been 12 moonwalkers, so that's physically going around the moon and collecting information and putting out probes and things like that. Our moon is considered the 5th largest within the solar system, of which there are 200 plus to compare to. The moon was also named the moon because apparently they didn't know there were more than one at the time. The next set of moons to be discovered was in 1610 by Galileo, and this was Jupiter's 4 moons. So we'll talk about Jupiter in another episode, but
it sounds like a classic human error. You know what I mean?
This is the only one.
This is what we know. And then hundreds of years later, we're like, actually, we were
just
wrong.
Kidding. This is a great example of discoveries through the time frame,
we learned new information.
And then we realized
up.
Great. Now I'm gonna have to bleep that out. Thanks, Blair.
Sorry. Sorry.
It's fine. No, it's true. And this is just a really good example of that exact thing. Like, this is the only mood. Oh, just kidding. Yeah. There are plenty of others. 200, in fact. We have about 842 pounds or 382 kilograms, again, if you're metric, of lunar rock and soil on Earth right now. And this is from all of the Apollo missions that took place. And we'll talk about those in the second half. And they're still being studied. So that's a lot of stuff to go through and a lot of things. And if you think you're like, oh, well, it's just a bunch of space rock. No, it's significantly more than that. And they do a lot of testing. So it's not just, oh, it's moon dust. It's what does it look like in this environment? What does it look like in this? When we do this to it, is there changes? So there's tons of experiments and tons of different things that they're doing to test the materials that go far beyond just, it's from the moon.
Right.
One of those things was when they were trying to decipher what it seems to me, at least, is anytime we send humans out or anytime we're sending robotics out into space, we're also looking for either evidence of or potential for life on other planetary systems, planets, right, moons. And so obviously one of the biggest questions that they have is there water, or has there been water, or is there potential for water? And during initial explorations, the analysis for the samples through the Apollo missions, they thought it was going to be very dry, not a lot of movement in the water era. But from what I understand, there was a mission from India in 2008 that did detect hydroxyl molecules that were spread across the lunar surface and concentrated at its poles. And it shows that the surface of the moon has global hydration, but there are really high concentrations of ice water, which is permanently shadowed in the regions of the lunar poles. So again, that discovery, like, oh, it's dry, it's just this dusty, arid scape. But in fact, there is new studies coming out in the early 2000s that say, hey, actually, there could be, or at least there's the molecules here to produce it, which is really cool. So just a little fun
fact. As humans, we like water.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't you need that to live?
Well, I always think about like how we're 80% water. And then did you ever watch the Jimmy Neutron movie?
Yes, like a long time ago now.
Right. So they get, I know, me too, but I think about this a lot. I don't know.
Okay.
Why. It like really stuck with me. So on like they get captured by the aliens, right?
Right.
And then they end up calling them like the aliens like figure out like what they're made of, and they realize that they're about 80% water.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, oh, so these like jelly bags, and they just call them jelly bags for like the entirety of the movie.
That's so rude.
It is rude, but it's not like false either.
First of all, I'm not a jelly bag. I'm a water balloon. Let's get that straight.
I mean, fair.
I may look like a jelly bag, but I'm actually made of water.
Water with muscle and skeleton on the inside.
I got veins.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, that's a great throwback.
Anyway, just wanted to like put that in there for everybody.
Now I'm going to have to go back and watch that. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Did you actually, I'm going to segue for a second. Did you also see the one Jimmy Neutron movie where it was like Timmy Turner from the Fairly Odd Parents and they switched worlds?
Yes, I did. Oh my God. That was good.
That was really
good. The Fairly Odd Parents is a very underrated show.
Absolutely. Between that and SpongeBob, those were my jam. Okay.
I mean, same. Yeah.
And
same.
As Told by Ginger, which I think was also Nickelodeon.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
Throwback. That's like Wild Thornberrys area.
Yes.
Like
yes.
That whole thing. Oh wow.
My mom loved the Wild Thornberrys, actually. That was like one of her favorites.
It was a good show. I remember the older sister when they like traveled to the Amazon or something, and she like had to go get her all natural shampoo. She realized that she could get all the ingredients from the Amazon rainforest. And that's how I learned about how shampoo was made.
Wasn't her name Debbie? Why is that coming to my mind? I don't know if that's her name.
Yeah, it was Debbie. It was Eliza, Debbie, and the feral boy was named
and the monkey.
The feral boy was named Donnie.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I forgot the monkey. I don't know.
Yeah, I've forgotten now.
And then the dad is Nigel.
Of course, because he's like a meme now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Anyway, back to space.
Moon.
Moon. We're talking about moon function. So the moon is responsible for a lot of Earth stabilization in its axis. This leads to relatively stable climate, which I've again have my own opinions about these days. But anyway, it's doing its best. The moon is also responsible for our ocean tides, which I feel like is a lot, a lot of people know that fact. It is responsible for the tides. And the fun thing about Earth and the moon in terms of how they synchronize is they are actually tidally locked in their rotation, which means that every time that you see the moon, you actually see the same side of the moon. This is what makes the complete orbit around the Earth every 27-ish days and gives way to our lunar cycles. There's 8 of them. There's the new moon, which is just, you can't see it at all. It's completely shadowed. The waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous, full moon, which means you can see the whole thing on that side, waning gibbous, third quarter, and waning crescent. And the fact stands that until 1959, when a Soviet spacecraft flew past the moon, we actually have never seen the far side of the moon. And that is a music quote from, I'm pretty sure, a Disney movie. Or maybe it's the dark side of the moon from the Mulan. Let's get down to business.
Well, I know that there's a Pink Floyd reference in there somewhere.
Absolutely. So it's in there.
Can I just say this is my favorite in relation to this? This is my favorite quote about the moon and the tides, and it's from Dwight Schrute on The Office. Okay, this is it. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm so ready. I don't know where this is going, honestly. And I've seen The Office.
Okay. All right. So I forget what episode this is, but he says, I wish I could menstruate. If I could menstruate, I wouldn't have to deal with idiotic calendars anymore. I'd just be able to count down from my previous cycle. Plus, I'd be more in tune with the moon and the tides.
Now, every time I start my period, I'm going to be like, no, I'm just tidally linked to the moon.
That's right. No, you look up at the moon and it's full and you're like, of course.
Of course.
And like, honestly, if you were in doubt if Dwight Schrute was a feminist, I mean, I feel like this clears it up for everybody.
Absolutely. Actually, this gives way to, I'm glad that you said that at the same time, though, because I did not do any research on like, oh man, and I just lost it too. It was like something that we use a lot to describe the moon, and now it's gone, and you reminded me so hard of it.
The phases of the moon?
Something like that. If I think about it again, I'll say it, but it's like I didn't do any research on it, and now that you said that, I'm like, crap, that would have been great to include. Dang.
Like the how people are affected when it's a full moon, because I can talk about that all day.
Honestly, yes, that's exactly what I was thinking about. Like when people say, oh, it must be a full moon, like I did nothing.
Oh yeah. Well, so in my experience as a nurse, when there is a full moon, and any nurse you ever talk to that works in a hospital or like even in outpatient and stuff too, if there is a full moon, people are going to be crazy. So if somebody starts acting crazy, it's very common to be like, oh, is it a full moon? And then we check and it is. And it's
absolutely
true.
It is.
People
so true.
act weird around the full moon, and it's like something to do with like the magnetic pole of the
right.
How, I don't know. It's there. I don't know how much science is based in that, but like
it is.
I'm here to tell you it's real. It's a real thing.
Correlation doesn't always prove causation, but I have to say it's it's pretty on brand for the full moon.
Yeah.
I feel
especially
like
night shift people. Like night shift people are out here in the hospital, doing the Lord's work with a full moon. Honestly.
He gives his hardest battles to his strongest people. Okay, so beyond the functionality of the moon, it does have very distinctive looks as well, weirdly enough. So most people know that if you look at the moon, you can see, darker spots. That's craters and literal divots and pits in the moon that have been caused by asteroids, meteorites, comets, just impacts, and some of them can be as wide as 52 miles. Don't ask me what that is in kilometers. I did not write it down. But that's a fact. It also has a very thin atmosphere called an exosphere, and it prevents us from being able to breathe on the moon, hence why you need the spacesuits, and is also why the moon is basically unable to sustain human life on its own as we know it. Of course, you see movies and things where they've built like huts and igloos and like aerated, like manufactured steel, like space stuff.
Yeah, totally. Space stuff.
Right. So technically, is it possible to live on the moon? Maybe, but it would take a lot of work and a lot of materials to do that, because it just doesn't support life on its own.
It would be really intense.
Right.
I think we would be better off building like a space station, and people do inhabit that. So
exactly. Also, similar to Earth, the moon does have 3 main layer structures. It is the core, the mantle, and the crust. We're taking it back to like middle school science now.
Yeah.
Where we had to build it. Yeah, I love it. So the core is rich in iron and has a radius of about 149 miles, which is 240 kilometers. And it is surrounded by a liquid iron shell that is then also surrounded by a slightly molten layer over that.
Oh,
I know, right? The mantle is made of olivine and pyroxene materials, which are produced by elements like magnesium, iron, silicon, and oxygen atoms. And then the crust is about 43 miles or 70 kilometers thick on the moon's near side. So I believe that side is the one that we can see. And then 93 miles or 150 kilometers on the far side, the side that you can't see. And that crust layer is made of oxygen, silicon, magnesium, iron, calcium, and aluminum in large amounts, and then titanium, uranium, thorium, potassium, and hydrogen in smaller amounts. So it's made of a lot of stuff. A lot of good stuff.
I like it.
I also, this is kind of a tangent, because I thought about putting this in and I was like, no, but I'm going to do it anyway because it made me think about it. So I recently saw a TikTok of this girl who does a lot of space news. Like, that's just her like topic of choice on TikTok.
Yeah.
And I saw.
Have you seen the creepy lake lady?
Oh my gosh. Oh, it's Spooky Lake Month.
Yeah.
I love her.
Okay. All right.
Same vibes.
Yeah.
So she does a lot of space material, and I saw it either last week or the week before, where she had posted about moon dust and how, we think of moon dust as this like soft, kind of sand-like powder. But if you actually look at the structure, it is rigid. It is larger than you think. It can be sharp. It's also pitted. And if you look at a picture online of like what it looks like under a microscope, it is wild looking. And people who have walked on the moon get covered in it, and it almost looks like they are covered in like coal dust, like from like working in a mine almost.
Why am I having deja vu right now? I feel like
really?
I've read this somewhere else.
You might have. As far as I know, it's kind of new. I mean, I think it might be new just because I saw it, but you never know when the stuff is posted. But I just saw this information like a week or so ago. Maybe it is new.
I feel like I've seen this somewhere else where like they were saying it's like really sharp, and if you inhale it, it's like really bad for you.
Yeah, it is, because of how dense, like it is larger than our sand and larger than our dust, and it's it doesn't get eroded a whole lot because there's not a lot going on the moon. And so it just maintains this sharpie, jagged kind of structure.
There's no wind, so it doesn't smooth down its edges or anything.
Exactly.
And so it just breaks, and it makes it like shards of glass.
And if you look at, there's pictures of astronauts who have been there, and they take off their spacesuits, and it's just like they look like they've just come out of a coal mine, honestly.
Yeah.
So it's insane. And I, like I said, I didn't mean to include it because I was like, well, whatever, but it's really cool. So go look at it, honestly. Like, go look it up.
I feel like I don't know where I read that, or I have literally no idea where I got that information from, but I totally knew what you were going to say before you said it. That's amazing.
I love that connection. That's because we share a mind when it comes to these things.
We do.
And with that, we are now going to move to the far side of the moon and give them. Don't roll your eyes at me.
That was rough.
Whatever.
Dude. Oh my God.
As rough as moon dust. All right. Well, enjoy the new ad.
We received many questions regarding what exactly Mediocre Content Podcast can be used for in the average person's daily life. Today, we will address this question head on with a list of everything you can do while listening to MCP. Kirsten, take it away.
Laundry, cooking, biking, hiking, driving, typing, working, walking, jumping, tattooing, swimming,
okay, Kirsten.
launching a rocket, math homework, hopping, racing, singing,
All right,
showering, shaving,
I think they get
sleeping,
it.
jogging, eating, spinning, zooming, fishing,
Kirsten?
boating,
Hello?
teething,
Girl, can you hear me?
taking out trash, gardening, building a house.
Okay. It appears we've lost her. Well, just so you know, you could do a lot of things while listening to Mediocre Content Podcast. So, yeah, that's the whole ad. And I'm gonna go head over to the second half now. Kirsten, come on over when you're better.
Being controversial.
All right. Bye, guys.
Not listening to your wife eating peanuts. Welcome back, space cadets. What were you gonna say?
Nothing.
Oh, please.
Nothing.
Oh, you gotta do it now. Okay, pretend we didn't start. Listener, pretend we didn't start, and Blair is gonna just bring us on it. Okay, take it home, Blair.
Welcome back. I hope you brought your moon shoes for the second episode.
Okay.
Second half of the
Oh
episode.
my God. No, you can't even give me that. Mine was also cringy. Anyway, welcome back. We're gonna talk about formation and exploration in this second half, and I like the way those words sound together, which is why I put them together. Okay. Formation. This is gonna be really short just because it just how the moon is the way that the moon is. So it's not gonna take me very long to explain.
Are you gonna tell us why it's round? Or is that like different?
I didn't even talk about that, to be honest.
That's
it's
okay.
Like, yeah.
I'm sure it has to do with like the forces in space and blah, blah, blah.
Well, okay. So this takes me on another tangent for like another bit of science information I found out like not so recently, maybe a year or so ago.
Mm-hmm.
The planets, including Earth, are not as round as we think they are.
Oh.
Like they're rounded, but it's more ovular, apparently. And not as perfectly round as we think that it is what I've been told.
Cool.
So like it is a circular shape, but it is not a perfect circle.
So
and neither
like
is
egg,
Earth.
So like egg shape?
We're talking eggs, yeah. Mm-hmm.
All
like
right,
just
then.
Slight egg energy.
Go on and shatter my whole worldview.
I'm so sorry. Existential crisis in this first half, and now the world is like topsy-turvy.
It's fine. It's fine, really.
But there is the leading theory that the moon originated from a Mars-sized body colliding with Earth about 4.5 billion years ago. And that debris from both Earth and the impactor, which is the body of mass,
right,
accumulated to form our natural satellite about 230,000 miles away, or 384,000 kilometers. And the newly formed moon then was in a molten state at the time, but within about 100 million years, most of the global, what they call magma ocean, had crystallized, with less dense rocks floating up and eventually forming what is now that lunar crust that we talked about in the first half.
Nice.
So that is the estimation. That is also probably what they assume to have been like the doomsday for a lot of things, I guess. I don't know if it was like dinosaur age, but it was definitely not cute.
Yikes. So the collision that made Earth is definitely before the dinosaurs.
Oh, well, this is like the collision that made the moon.
Oh, okay. So
yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So this is what happened. So okay, I got it now. So a giant rock hit Earth, and a chunk of Earth flew off and made what is now the moon.
Yes, in addition,
and it was on fire.
Oh, right. Yes, it was very
Okay.
hot.
All right.
Um,
I'm sorry, you guys. I did not understand what she was saying. And
her
that
head's in space.
very dumb. That was a
No, you're
very
not
dumb
dumb.
moment.
No, you're not dumb. No, I should have explained that better. So, for context, again, this is the moon's origins, and it came
Okay.
from a chunk of Earth colliding with a chunk of space rock that was about the size of
Yeah.
Mars.
I was thinking that we made Earth, and then in the process of making Earth,
No.
like
Right.
a piece of Earth like flew off in
Oh,
that process. That's what I
no.
was
No,
thinking.
no. It's
Okay.
basically like two planets collided and the debris caused the moon to
Got it.
then, yeah, to exist
Makes
and then
sense.
orbit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the moon's origin story. um, and now we're gonna go on to exploration because that's really the nitty-gritty in my opinion. So there is the thing called the space race. It's been going on since about 1957 when we discovered we could actually send things, including people, into space in general. And that kind of started with Sputnik. And there's been extreme competition between other world powers, such as the United States, Russia, and China, mainly, that are working to explore and get data and analyses on space in general since then. For the sake of time, we're only going to talk about the United States explorations. But of course, as expected, there are tons of other explorers that have done flybys, have had landings with their uh, robots. I mean, that's what they are.
Yeah.
Um, that
Robotic
have
robots.
robotic robots that have contributed exponentially to the data that has come out of all this exploration. So just wanted to say that we're still exploring, we're still researching, and we're also not the only ones doing it. So Apollo 11 starts America's journey to physically get people on the moon. This was July 16, 1969. And this was the first US crew to land on the moon. It was the finest hour in America's space program. We made contact physically. In
Indeed.
just 8 years, we had gone from zero human spaceflight compatibility to landing men on the surface of the moon. And I mean that literally, because it was Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. From these missions, scientists would develop a new view of the origin and evolution of planets as well as life on Earth, which was very instrumental in figuring out, the Earth's origin stories, I'm sure. Uh, the two astronauts landed in what's called the Mare Tranquillatus, which is the Sea of Tranquility, on July 20th, 1969. And they walked on the moon for over 2 hours, collecting rocks and soil and essentially laying out experimental packages to review on the moon and collect data. So that was our first encounter physically with the moon.
Yeah.
There was then Apollo 12 in November of 1969 also. Apollo 12 touched down in Oceanus Procellarum, which is Ocean of Storms. And this mission was to demonstrate our ability to have more precise landing, like where we wanted to be on the moon to do our research. This had astronauts Pete Conrad and Alan Bean, who would explore in 2 moonwalks and collect over 75 pounds of samples and deploying nuclear powered experimental packages. So, up in the game in the experimental packages. I don't really know what was enclosed in the experimental packages. Like, I don't really know what they were composed of or what their real purpose was other than data collection. So, you'd have to do your own research on that. I'm not really sure on that one. And then a lot of people are familiar with Apollo 13, who had a failure in the oxygen tank and had to return to Earth. So that mission was unsuccessful. We had Apollo 14. This was sent to the Highlands site that was just east of what the Apollo 12 explorers went through near the crater Fra Mauro. They didn't give me a translation on that one. That's just what they called it. And this site was chosen to collect rocks blasted out from deep within the moon by the formation of the giant Imbrium impact basin, which is a crater over 620 miles in diameter and situated 3,723 miles north of the landing site. This mission had Alan Shepard and Edgar Mitchell, who conducted 2 moonwalks on the lunar surface, and towing a pull cart filled with tools, they were able to return with 95 pounds of rock and soil from the moon from that mission. 1971 began the 3J missions. So this would be Apollo 15, 16, and 17. Apollo 15's mission was a really long stay with a greater focus on science that had been more greater focus on science than had been previously possible with the other voyages. Mm-hmm. Apollo 15, whose lunar module Falcon spent 3 days on the lunar surface, was the first mission to use a lunar rover, which is that small electric cart that allows you to travel many kilometers, without being too far. Yeah. So they were able to use that technology, which was new. On 3 lunar rover excursions, there was Dave Scott and Jim Irwin, who would explore the beautiful Hadley Apennine landing site. Again, no translation for that, but it's a valley at the base of the main rim of the huge Ebrium Basin that also includes both Mare and Highland rocks. The crew would return with what is known as the Genesis Rock, which is composed almost entirely of one material called plagioclase feldspar, and it represents the most ancient crustal rocks on the moon to date. They also found small fragments of emerald glass formed when magma from deep within the mantle was previously explosive and erupted through the crust to spray out the lava, which is just fun times. Apollo 16 was next. Sent the ancient crater Descartes, which is deep in the lunar highlands. This is where astronauts John Young and Charlie Duke spent 3 days exploring. They traveled over 18 miles, collecting more than 206 pounds of samples. So as you can also see through each of these, the amount of samples that were brought back was significantly higher each time, which is, again, a trade of the technology that was available to them. They deployed and operated the first astronomical telescope on the moon. For some reason, my mouth couldn't say astronomical. One puzzling observation by the crew was that the measurement of a very strong magnetic field on the surface was observed. And even though the moon has no global magnetic field, there were some lunar particles and samples that had remnants of magnetism. And to them, this suggests that they cooled in the presence of strong fields. And although we don't really understand lunar magnetism still, that's just kind of what they were using to try and make clearer.
At least they know it's like possible.
Exactly.
Or was possible at one time.
Exactly. So that's helpful, I guess. I don't really know what they're doing with that information now, but it contributed. And then the last mission in terms of human contact on the moon was Apollo 17, December of 1972. And then, as discussed, they are going to have goals for future ones, but this was the last one at the time. This one had Gene Cernan and Jack Schmitt. The first professional geologists sent to the moon was Jack Schmitt, and they spent 3 days thoroughly exploring what is called the Taurus Littrow Valley. They returned with over 242 pounds of samples and deployed a set of new surface experiments. Apparently, they made startling and significant discoveries. The crew found 3.6 billion year old orange volcanic ash.
Ooh.
Right? And then from the mountains, they returned with crustal rocks and complex breccias created through the impact that formed the Serenitatis Basin. Man, these words. Which was formed almost 3.9 billion years ago. Lavas at this site are over 3.6 billion years old, and they are documenting at least 700 million year span of lava flooding the moon. So again, that was that magma ocean that they were talking about before it crusted over and crystallized. So that is the history of exploration physically with human contact on the moon for the United States. There are upcoming goals of exploration, as we've been kind of hinting at the entire time. In this case, the goal of the lunar return through their Artemis program is to not just prove that, you can do it like the Apollo did, because obviously we've been there, done that.
Right.
But this is to learn how to use the moon to support new and growing spacefaring capabilities. And on the moon, they're hoping to learn skills and develop more technology needed to live and work essentially on another world. So really space agey kind of feel of living in space and traveling those distances. And they're hoping to use that knowledge and technology to open up solar system as a whole for human exploration. So that's that.
That's amazing.
It's a lot, honestly.
I know it's kind of overwhelming to think about.
That's kind of what I was like, yeah, we're just gonna go to the moon and learn how to live in space and stuff. Just another Tuesday.
It's casual. It's fine.
Casual
well, and I think too, people don't really hear about space exploration until like right before we're about to launch a rocket or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, unless you really follow it, but I feel like mainstream wise, I mean, we don't really hear about it. So we don't know how far, like when we think of space exploration, we're still like thinking about the things that are happening in the 70s where we don't know how far we've really made it because we don't see it, you know? And so this should be interesting.
Well, and again, a lot of what's being observed right now, even today, is robotic information. And so you do you see headlines of satellites falling or like things coming back. But, you know, like you said, a lot of that physical touch is based in like the 70s, which is I'm not good at math, but it's been a while.
It's been a while
since the 70s.
It has.
Like multiple decades of research that has been done hands off since then. So this is a huge push for more space exploration. They now have the Space Force, which is, you know, maybe going to be helping with that. I don't really know. Don't ask our husbands about the Space Force because they will make all the jokes. But
Space Force.
You know, I mean, honestly, if the Space Force is anything like Star Trek, I'm into it. Like, let's go lightning speed. I'm ready. My body is ready.
There's also a really good Netflix show with Steve Carell called Space Force that might be worth watching for everybody.
I haven't watched it. I do like Steve Carell though.
It's funny. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think there's like 2 seasons and that was it. But.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I saw so I went to go watch, you know, because I'm just one of those people that just enjoys rewatching a bunch of shows and had a lot of commitment issues with starting new ones.
Yeah,
but
same.
I was going back to Netflix to watch my show. They have gotten rid of so much. Like there's literally a middle season of this show that for some reason is also the audio is out of sync with the picture now. So I can't watch it because it's like they're talking, but you know how like they're talking and then the sound happens afterwards. Yeah. It's delayed. Yeah. It drives me insane. I'm like, why even bother? Just take the whole thing down. just be done with it.
Internet issue or is it
No, it's legit.
Is it a show issue?
It's a show issue. I tried it on our TV app and then I tried it on my computer because I was also thinking, well, maybe it's just lagging. No, it's legit the show itself. It's been posted that way.
Why? What show is it?
It's an anime.
Oh, okay. That's kind of what I thought.
It's Black Butler, if anybody else is aware of it. Yeah, okay. So it's Black Butler. They have season 3 on there in the OVA. The season 3 is the one that's giving me issues. So maybe anybody else experiencing this problem? I don't know. I don't know.
Help her out so you can watch her anime.
I know. I could just buy the Crunchyroll subscription, but then I just have too many subscriptions. Yeah.
It's too many.
It is too many. And I could pay the yearly subscription, but it's so expensive.
It is so expensive.
Oh, I just don't want to spend the monies on that. But I apparently don't want to spend monies on Netflix either because I can't even watch the shows that are on there and they don't even have that many.
It's so complicated now. We need to do, maybe we've talked about this, doing a future pod about all of the like streaming services and everything.
Oh, yeah. We'll add it to our social series.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll call it I was thinking of a pun and for some reason was just like, Mother, are you streaming? Because I thought about Laura, are you breathing?
Nobody gets that.
That's our joke.
Nobody gets that.
Anyway.
All right. We're gonna take this somewhere else now.
Yeah, we're coming in for a landing on this one.
Oh God.
Anything else to add, Blair?
No.
Okay.
No. Nothing else.
Okay, well, if you have something to add or if you have future recommendations, feel free to send them our way at mediocrecontentpodcast@gmail.com. Tweet us at Mediocre Squawks or follow us on Instagram at Mediocre Content Podcast. We would love to see you guys over there. And that's all I have. So I guess we'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.